Hello and welcome to the Nailed On FPL podcast with John and Kris. We are back as Gameweek 27 comes to an end, and we're now looking ahead to 28 and a fairly hectic schedule of fixtures for many as we approach the single game week, and a good opportunity for many to wildcard as well. So we're looking ahead to 28, Kris. What's on our mind?
Yeah, well, probably first of all is the underperformance of Salah. Would probably a good place to start, isn't it? 11 blanks in his last 14. You and I have both felt the pain. Triple captaining over the last couple of big double game weeks that we've had in 19 and 26, and he's not delivered. But obviously that sort of coincided with Liverpool being in really, really bad form. Losing 6 in a row at home is just massively unheard of, isn't it, for them? But I guess the first question we want to ask is, do you look at replacing him right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, we need to look at this. We know that there's obviously variance in the game. You can have a great prospect for a game week, and it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to return. He might be like 1 to 2 to score a goal any time. Still doesn't mean he's going to return. So we are going to see short-term variance. And I fully expect Salah to go on streaks where he blanks. But what's happened to Liverpool now, the real question is, are Liverpool a weaker team? And is Salah a weaker prospect than he was a few months ago or a few weeks ago? And I think everyone is lots of FPL managers in particular are going to say yes. The bookies, on the other hand, still rate his goal scoring ability. We can't ignore that. And for that reason, he still remains a pretty good option, in my opinion. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you sort of doubt him at your own peril, I guess.
Yeah,
if that's the right word. Because people might go, right, well, it's an easy. If for those that may have downgraded Bruno over the last couple of weeks because of the fixtures, they may now be thinking, well, Bruno's almost fixture proof, as he's the top scorer in the game, and it sort of gets you more funds. So is it worth downgrading to him? And I think it really depends, what chips you've got left and stuff like that. Obviously, if you plan to wildcard anytime soon, obviously if you're trying to set up your team for game week 29, which we'll come on to as well, obviously comes into it. But I think it's still a bit of a sideways move for me that potentially doesn't have huge benefits in the short term. If we look at this weekend's fixtures, Liverpool away to Wolves. Salah's still, one of the best captaincy options this weekend. Whereas Bruno's going against, we're seeing now West Ham winning again comfortably, a team in great form. So that's going to be a tricky game.
Well, you may have just noticed my face illuminated as I was checking the odds of Salah scoring any time. And that is really important because it's probably the best way to indicate how likely he is to score in terms of what publicly available information is out there. He's still 11 to 10 to score a goal any time. That's going to be one of the best scoring probabilities of any player this week. Yet so many people are going to want to jump off him. So even though he's away to Wolves, that at the beginning of the season, you'd have been not too excited about that fixture. He's a potential captaincy option for me. And the big question is, Kris, are there any kind of straight replacements you see for Salah? Can you really beat his potential returns with a single transfer, like a straight swap?
It's difficult. On paper, no. But you could make a case for obviously, Bruno Fernandes or someone like KDB or something like that. I guess it depends if you wanted to, how many transfers you got left as well. If you didn't have Kane, you wanted to get him in. Obviously downgrading Salah and upgrading to Kane it's not a bad move if you've got 2-3 transfers. If you're going to take a hit for it, I question that because, Kane plays away at Arsenal, which, is a tough fixture, but we know the history of that fixture, myself as an Arsenal fan as well. There's, the last 0-0 between the two teams was about 12 years ago. So, usually get a few goals in that game. Kane has obviously got a good goal scoring record, but Salah away to Wolves, it's a definite hold for me. So it's a pretty easy decision, I think, at this stage.
Almost like a bit of a differential, because I think if we look at captaincies going into game week 28, I think people are going to flock towards Bruno, who's just who lots of people already have in their teams. a home fixture to West Ham. West Ham obviously looking pretty decent. He's a good option. Lots will also look at their Man City assets too. And whilst I said I might captain Salah, I forget that I've just brought KDB into my team. And I think I maybe prefer the upside of KDB. Another person who looks a little bit out of form, but the most popular, I mean, yeah, I think there's going to be a good spread of captaincies going to next week. You're not going to get overly stung by picking someone, I think. Whereas there's some weeks where you see like almost 200% on a certain player. There's a good spread. Even DCL is a viable pick as well, and Vardy if you have him. So lots of good options going.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously we should talk a little bit about the double game week that isn't the double game week. Right. Obviously, it was heavily touted that we'd get Villa and Everton double game week in 28, but yeah, it looks like that'll be way too short notice to announce that now. So looking at Ben Krellin's Twitter, looks like that is more likely to go into game week 30. So just have an eye on that when you're making any transfers. On the podcast here, we still think that if you've got the wild card left, then game week 31 is probably your best bet. Try and set your team up as well as you can for that potential double and game week 29, which we'll come on to shortly as well, John.
Yeah, I mean, if you've already got a number of players, we know how the single game week is going to look in 29. So we know the teams to target for that. And kind of by coincidence, lots of those teams, so being Leeds, Villa, Spurs, they have really good fixtures in game week 30. So I think without thinking, most people would have thought, okay, I'm going to have the single game week and then wildcard 30. But you'll tend to find that your team's set up near perfectly for 30. I will just say those with Salah in their team, Arsenal, Liverpool is the fixture in game week 30. Liverpool also blank in 30. So
29, you mean,
sorry, blank in 29. So if you're going to take out Salah, leaving him for the Wolves fixture this week, I think is perfectly viable. I mean, you might, if you want to play it cautiously, maybe don't captain. If you want to kind of oppose him, don't captain him. But I wouldn't be panicking to take him out. So that's where I stand on that. We've talked enough about Salah though. I think as you move into 29, the fact he's blanking and has a terrible fixture, and then those with a wild card probably going to wild card 31 anyway. For me, I'm almost 100% ditching Salah in 29. So I'll hold him for one more week and ditch him. So that's an important mention. But the teams to target, which will be amazing in 29 and 30, are going to be Aston Villa, Leeds. Chelsea have an amazing picture in 30, but we'll tackle that when it gets to it. And of course, Spurs. Oh, and Everton as well, actually.
Yeah, especially if they get the double as well.
Yeah,
it looks really good. And if you're in a position like I am with the bench boost left, that's potentially a good one to hold for that week. Or if you already try to set up like I did for 28 for a good bench boost, you could look to do that as well. If you've got a really strong bench. So just to sort of weigh that up. I mean, hopefully we get an announcement on that fixture before the deadline. Would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's for me, I'm rolling my transfer this week because until we see that next double confirmed in 30, you want to stay as flexible as possible. And can you bring in any player who plays in 29 who benefits you in the short term now? And I'm not sure you can, given that West Ham are away to Man United next week. I mean, Leeds are playing Chelsea. That's not overly favourable. Villa, if you don't already have 3 Villa players, a move to a Villa player is quite viable, in my opinion, just because they're going to play 29. They might double in 30, and they already have a really good fixture in 30, even if they don't. So, I mean, that's kind of a very broad tip, but in terms of a short-term beneficial transfer, a Villa player looks good. Even the likes of Sammy Watkins hit the bar.
Sammy Watkins.
Oh, I'm mixing. It's good.
Watkins.
It's NFL. It's NFL. Ollie Watkins. So I mean, again, he's maybe not banging the goals in, but he's still a great scoring prospect.
He's got a bit of lucky as well, hasn't he? He's at the post of the bar in the last couple of games. I think we've both noticed that when Villa don't play with Grealish, they don't look as good going forward. They still look solid at the back. but yeah, don't create as much chances. And
yeah, I'd agree with that. But less
Grealish
chances.
Grealish is a big part of that. So if he comes back, then Sammy Watkins is a good choice. But yeah, I mean, we should just say actually, a lot of obviously Lingard has scored tonight. I can already see that lots are already transferring him in now. If you don't know, obviously he's on loan from United, so he will not play in 28. Obviously, if you want to bring him in now to put him on the bench for 1 week, don't do it. It's not really.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's not worth any of the price rises that you may miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, you might see injuries elsewhere in your team.
Exactly.
And I can't imagine. I mean, if Lingard is going to rise after he's got a guaranteed blank in 28, it doesn't make sense. No. It was he took the penalty today. People say, "Oh, he's on pens," but as we've already kind of talked about this prior to the podcast, is that Declan Rice was on them previously, and it looks like it was whoever wanted to take it, and Rice wanted to take it last time. I think after Lingard's last penalty, it was right at the keeper, which has just happened. Can't imagine he'll be taking the next one.
No, I'd imagine Rice. So they either alternating or, this is going to be Rice from now on because Lingard missed. So, probably one to avoid until 29. Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about your plan then, John, in terms of, you said you're going to ditch Salah in 29. Who are you looking to bring in for that week?
Yeah, so I find myself in probably a similar position to lots of managers. So with a planned wildcard for 31, a team which has lots of Leeds players, Villa players, lots of the template. However, I do not have Harry Kane. I obviously paid the price last week, big time. My rank quadrupled overnight, which was unfortunately quadrupled is not good. So I went from 250 in play to outside of the top 1K. So it's pretty brutal. So obviously Harry Kane is a huge risk to my team. Whilst I don't want to ride that variance anymore. He's obviously the top pick in 29 or one of the top picks. He has an amazing fixture in 30. And I'm also looking at Gareth Bale. And the only issue, we know how good he is. Whether he can find that form again. And if he's starting every game, then he almost if he's starting games and he's back in that kind of form that which represents the world-class Bale we know and love. I mean, Kris is a huge Bale fan.
The Real Madrid version, yeah. I don't mind.
I mean, he's looking brilliant. So
I just want to jump in there. So obviously he is looking good, but the same player that people love, who's a world class player, also has so many injury problems over the years. It's not random things that he just gets injured. Obviously, his body just gets broken down quite easily. So, if you look at his injury record over the last 10 years, I mean, it is appalling. But to be fair, I wouldn't hold people against, trying to get on that short-term gain. As long as you've got, as long as you've got, for you're getting him in for 2 weeks.
True.
But, if you haven't got a wild card and you're trying to rip apart your team to bring Bale in, then I probably would second guess it.
A good way to action what you're saying. I mean, essentially prioritize Kane and Son first. Proven goal scorers for Spurs. That 100% the best way to go. And then if you want the third best option for Spurs right now, especially as a short-term punt, Gareth Bale. I mean, I'd be more concerned about injury in the likes of will Mourinho rotate. And if it was a double game week, I'll be less tempted to go with Gareth Bale, even though he did do really well in the last double game week. I believe he played them both. So no, he's an exciting short-term punt, but I will be dodging him in 28. So for me, the only way I can enable that is Salah to Bale and DCL to Harry Kane. Obviously, if there's a double game week in 30, that's going to be really off-putting for me taking out DCL.
Yeah.
But I can probably make something work there. So I think, those that find themselves in a similar situation going into 29 with the three of Kane, Son and Bale is really nice because you get them for 29, 30, and then you can recalibrate your plans in 31. Start at scratch. Don't even look at, if you're planning on wildcarding in 31, it doesn't even matter what you don't even need to form an opinion of what your draft might look like until it gets to 31. I mean, obviously don't get caught up too much, but that is absolutely my plan. So it will be planned 2 transfers in 29 of Bale and Kane. That's from Salah and DCL. And then going into 30, I'll probably be looking at Chelsea at home to West Brom for a single punt. And I don't know who that might be. It could be I don't know. No idea. He's rotating the entire squad. No one's safe. Maybe Werner, I'm going to say. It could be anyone.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's only Azpilicueta, I think, that's played every game under Tuchel. But yeah, it's a bit one to watch for Chelsea, isn't it? I mean, I saw something on Twitter earlier. We got Pep Roulette, and now we've got a Tuchel toss-up or something. That's what it's the new name.
Yeah. Not quite as catchy.
No, not quite as catchy. Wish I hadn't said that now. Yeah, but I should. So we'll probably go into more detail into Game Week 29 in next week's episode. Talk about sort of players to target, players to avoid, depending on if you've got a wild card or not. But yeah, we'll go through that next week.
Absolutely. Just before we end the episode, who are you captaining next week?
So in 28, it depends if Everton have a double game week, at which point it will be DCL. If not, it is likely to be the Egyptian King.
Interesting. And that will be an unpopular opinion. And for me, yeah, it's Salah versus KDB. I'd probably go KDB. But yeah, cool. So I think that's everything, unless you have anything else.
No, it's all good.
Okay, thanks for tuning in.
Cheers, guys. See you later.